Hello, good evening, and thanks for your time. This is News at 10 on TV3. We're live from the News Hub at Adesawe, Kanda and Accra, and you can follow our live stream on Facebook and on 3news.com. Let's begin the bulletin with highlights of some of today's news stories. 11 power purchase agreements with a combined capacity of 2,808 megawatts of power are to be terminated. 7 others are to be deferred. And the Food and Drugs Authority has rounded up 16 street vendors in a special operation in Accra. The multi-agency joint operation targeted unauthorized drug dealers, unregistered drugs, and sale of drugs outside designated sale points. Private senior high schools recorded a 20% drop in their intake for September this year due to the implementation of the free SHS program. National President of the Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools, CHOPS, IK Mensah, says 50% of its members will be out of business if government does not include them in the policy for the next academic year. And also on the continent, war veterans of Zimbabwe have asked Robert Mugabe to take a wise decision, or they decide for him. Right, those are our major news highlights. Remember, we're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, the 2015 and 2016 Auditor General's reports indicate Ghana lost over 100 million cedis through unethical procurement practices. They include store purchases not routed through stores and failure to obtain alternative quotations. The Public Procurement Act of 2003, Act 633, is to ensure value for money for the country. Ghana has saved 98 million cedis over the past 9 months through the introduction of stringent measures by the Public Procurement Authority to address wastage in the procurement and supply management, deliberate controlling of competition, non-compliance with provision of the law, and splitting of contracts into smaller lots to encourage sole sourcing are some of the major challenges militating against the implementation of the Public Procurement Law. The Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply's Code of Ethics for Procurement and Supply Professionals is to ensure competitiveness in all procurement processes. The maintenance of high standards by the procurement supplies professionals is key in the fight against corruption. In the 2018 budget, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, noted a major source of corruption has been with malfeasance in public procurement and the extensive human interface in the provisions of public services. Right, so tonight we will be discussing the role of procurement in checking corruption, really. With me in the studio, we have Collins Ajimai. Ms. Ajimai is the president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supplies to my extreme left, and then Benjamin Beidu is vice president of the GIPS. Gentlemen, great to have you here.
Thank you.
This is a crack team, I can see that, for an evening like that. So let me start with you, Ms. Ajimai. What does the Code of Ethics seek to achieve, really, when it comes to procurements?
Well, is to weed out all the corrupt guys in the system. You know, we are professionals, and therefore, when you hear all these issues going around in terms of how procurement are done, from where we sit as professionals, we know that systems and other things can help reduce corruption. But the human being need to have a certain self-regulated system to push their practices.
But we cannot cut the human beings completely out of the mix yet.
So you can have all the systems, you can have all the policies, you can have whatever, but you need to work on the human being who is leading the procurement process. And therefore, we think that is the mindset. How do we change the mindset? How do we control the people at the forefront? And therefore, there's the need to come out with a code of conduct to manage or to control the behaviors, I mean the unethical behaviors of procurement practitioners and professionals.
Let me switch the discussion to Mr. Baidu. Mr. Baidu, are you able to tell us some of the principles of this code?
Thank you very much. Generally, as my president said, in every human institution, you may find, some flaws here and there. People want to take advantage of the system in spite of all the checks that we put in place. But we felt that over the years, we've been hearing news items which say that, look, people are misprocuring and people are also taking advantage of the system. So we felt at an institute to come up with a code of ethics that will regulate the conduct of all our members and even all practitioners as far as procurement is concerned in Ghana. So what we intend to do as an institute is to make sure that at least this code of ethics will bring what we call integrity into the practice of all our members and professionals of procurement, and also to ensure that we have objectivity.
Is it to suggest that previously integrity was a problem among your members?
No, integrity was there, but the question is how many people were following it? Because there was no guidance to regulate the conduct. People were doing their own thing. So we felt that as an institute, we need to put in place a code of ethics that will ensure and guide the conduct of all our members. And also to ensure that this code of ethics will bring what we call professionalism, okay, and exercising due care in the what we call conduct of your, procurement. So as an institute, we are of the view that, yes, people will take advantage of the system, but once we have a code of conduct that regulates our members, and the fact that if you go contrary to this code of conduct, you will be sanctioned. So it will serve as a check on our members and all procurement professionals. So,
Mr. Sapon, let's narrow down to the 2018 budget. I mean, that's the key thing we've been discussing. Yeah. The finance minister made mention of procurement, and appointments of the Minister of State for Public Procurement is one of the things that this government put in place as solution, part of the solution to checking corruption through the procurement system. Do you think, looking at the structures that have been put in place by this government, the cleanups that it is doing, do you see that this budget presents hope for these systems to work effectively, to be able to root out corruption in the procurement system?
Yes, the fight for corruption is clearly stated, and even under that, he mentioned having a minister in charge of public procurement. He mentioned the introduction of e-procurement. He mentioned the work that Yoko and all the police and others, the Auditor General, they are doing. So it's something that shows the commitment of the current administration to fighting corruption. But where we sit, we think that there is the need to add the people. And that is where our...
So when you say the people, your view is that no matter what systems are in place,
yes,
people of integrity are critical in ensuring that the systems work effectively,
sure, because,
and we root out corruption.
Because, Steve, you have e-procurement. You need people to implement it. And even within that, I have done e-procurement over 10 years. People can still corrupt the system. Yeah. You can still have a minister in charge of public procurement.
And if it will be corrupted, it will be corrupted.
It will be corrupted. And if I have the power to give contract, if I have the power to run procurement process, and I am an unethical person, I will still find a way, a loophole, to just throw things in there. That is why we think that as an institute, the people that we are giving it to the public or to government to work with, what ethical integrity are they bringing? What type of training are they having? So that you don't even try it. Right. And we are very passionate about it because corruption fuels inequality, corruption holds back economic development, and corruption hurts the very vulnerable in society. And therefore, because I have power, I give contract to my cronies, I make money for myself and my children, and know that 3 generations after me wouldn't see poverty. What about the masses? And therefore, we think that it's good, all the things that they've stated, but we will add our code of ethics to support the government so that they use people that are having this ethical behaviors to move it. If not, you have procurement, you have minister, procurement will go to cabinet and all. Even it can be prepared and come to parliament or cabinet. And if you bring, let's say, a corrupt technical guy, he would defend it and let you know that you need to approve it. You wouldn't have that eye to see it. So we need to look at the people, the professionals, because 70% of every organization spent, apart from emolument, personal, is driven by procurement.
So is it your wish, is it your desire that with time, people who are associated with the Institute will be the ones who will be the forerunners in any kind of procurement system, both in the public service?
Sure. If we don't get to that point, we are just making noise.
Right.
You know, I always give this example. It will be very difficult to walk to your chief accountant or the finance director that, look, can we sign 100,000 and go and share? But it is easy for people to inflate invoices, for people to take payments without delivering the work. Why? Because the people who are running it, they don't care. They don't have that ethical behavior to making good what everybody wants.
Right. Let me switch the conversation and let me end up with you. Mr. Baidu, I know that the private sector is usually always the benchmark when it comes to services. If you look at public service, people say private sector delivers on productivity much more than the public service. So moving forward, how do we ensure that the good procurement practices that are common with the private sector is translated into the work that public sector procurement officials also do?
Thank you very much. I'm happy you said that private sector, usually delivers because of the fact that, look, they have best practices in place. But if you come to public procurement, even though we have the law, right? But the question is, you do not have most people who have been trained professionally to man some of this, procurement activity. In the private sector, the person is thinking about making profitability. So he will find ways and means to ensure that he reduces cost to the barest minimum, okay, to generate the net.
And the public sector should learn from that.
And the public sector should learn from that. So if you look at the public procurement law, essentially it's talk about value for money. And value for money is basically, driven by what we call economy, effectiveness, and then efficiency. So if you consider all these things, then you'll be able to, let's say, talk about the fact that, look, this decision that you are taking as far as procurement is concerned, it is going to benefit the one who is sitting somewhere in the village. That the rippling effect, okay, will come to that person. So, as an institute, yes, we know that private sector have their, what we call the standard operating procedures in place or their own procurement policies. But the fact that they are able to monitor and ensure that you are compliant with their laws.
It's what makes the difference between private and public sector.
Yes, we should be able to also make sure that whatever we are put in place, apart from the law, the code of ethics should be applicable to everybody practicing procurement.
Right, Mr. Benjamin Baidu, we're grateful for your time. And Mr. Sapon, also thank you very much for coming. So we've been talking procurement, really, and with our hope that our procurement systems are streamlined, we all want the best for Ghana so we can be able in the future to root out corruption amidst us. I'm Stephen Antia, and this is still News at 10. We have more news for you. Please don't go away. Welcome back. Now, rehabilitation works aimed at improving structures for the Kintampo waterfalls to ensure public safety is almost complete. TV3's Larry Parkwesi Moses toured the waterfalls and brings you this report.
That on the 19th of March this year, a major accident occurred at the Kintampo waterfalls, claiming 18 lives and rendering several others seriously injured. The Ghana Tourism Authority initiated measures aimed at addressing structural defects at the waterfalls. At the time of TV3's visits, renovation works were almost complete. Some of the structures currently being worked on include a resting place, an office, museum, and an infirmary. The old 152 staircase down the waterfalls has been rehabilitated, with an additional new one being constructed. Acting CEO of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Agyemang, said about 500,000 Ghana cedis has been spent so far on the first phase of the project. He spoke about measures being put in place to guarantee the safety of tourists at all times.
There were so many trees along the banks of the waterfalls that were a risk item, so we had to take them down. A lot of replanting to check erosion and check some of the rocks from falling. We had to reopen the base of the waterfall itself, so that at least if you can see from behind me the vast expanse that has been opened up.
Akwesi Agyemang explained the management system that will be put in place to manage the day-to-day running of the Kintampo waterfall. 5-member
board of directors, what we call the management board. They are going to be represented 2 by the assembly, 2 by the traditional authorities, and 1 by GTA. Then below them, who is the management structure itself, will be a permanent site manager. We are going to employ that through an open system.
He further explained how revenue from the waterfalls will be utilized to ensure sustenance.
Sharing formula that we all are going to use. 20% to the traditional authorities, 20% to the municipal assembly, 20% to GTA, and 40% goes into what we call a development escrow account. That is going to be used for the next phase of works that has to happen. There are plans, there's a land use plan that has been put in place by the assembly, and that includes adding on a restaurant, a hotel, more entertainment facilities, and an expanded events grounds. So those monies will be used for that, and also maintenance of the site.
Now, Zimbabwean war veterans have warned President Robert Mugabe to relinquish power and leave the country, or they will force him to do so. Former diplomat, minister and chairman of the war veterans, Christopher Mutsvangwa, told the media Zimbabwe needs President Mugabe and his wife no more, and the option left is for them to leave the country in peace.
I want to salute, beyond that, the population of Zimbabwe. You have remained very disciplined. Every family lost somebody during the war. That was a bitter war. So you are very measured in your analysis of risk, especially political risk, but it doesn't mean you are docile. But once you go beyond a certain point with the Zimbabwe population, they will make you answer the bill, pay the bill. And between now and tomorrow, we are saying we are giving a warning, a very stark warning to Mugabe, to his wife, and to anybody who still wants to be associated with him, that the game is up, finished, done. Our body is not for the protection of governments. We abide by the law, of course. Our history is tirana pindura zvinhu. We change situations. That's what we are. We are giving an ultimatum to Mugabe. This aura of this pretense that things are normal, going to Zou University and keeping people, hey, it's pretense. We won't accept it. It's finished. He has to make a decision along the diplomas which is being given by SADC to promptly leave office. Leave office still under the terms of the uniformed guys, because they are there to protect governments. This is the time for change. We are on the same page with the Zimbabwe population, which has suffered 15 to 20 years of abject economic neglect, which has now moved into plunder of a kleptocratic nature, avarice by Grace and her cohorts. So we are there to put an end to that. We want to create hope for the young generation. He makes a decision today to leave. It's upon him to make it, and his wife, under the terms which he should negotiate with the generals. If he doesn't, then we'll settle the scores tomorrow. He thought he had people. Tomorrow he's going to see who has got people.
That's a very strong warning there. Anyway, the Food and Drugs Authority here in Ghana has rounded up about 16 street drug vendors in a special operation in Accra. The multi-agency joint operation targeted unauthorized drug dealers, unregistered drugs, and sale of drugs outside designated sale points.
See this one, like this one, I'd buy 25. If you cocoa, why Gloria?
24-year-old Musa Mamadou claimed he started selling drugs years ago in Ghana because of hardship. He has a variety of drugs, including soda water, which he claimed can cure piles, malaria, waist and body pains, pimples, fever and gonorrhea. Some of Musa's drugs can only be used by ladies.
Well, like me myself, I don't want to sell this one because I know how money the way they change it.
Musa gets his stock from Tudu, Accra, but was unable to describe the exact location. 28-year-old Kwesi Boating, who is unemployed, was one of the 2 Ghanaians apprehended during the swoop. According to him, he used to be a beggar until a friend introduced him to the business of selling dewormers. Kwesi lives at La Paz but conducts his business at Medina. These activities, the FDA says, is a concern as they infringe on public health and safety issues. The joint operation with the police, SEPS, BNI and Yoko was to discourage the unauthorized sale of drugs and unregistered products. The operation again targeted the indiscriminate sale of tramadol, which the FDA says has led to gross abuse among the youth.
Which has been established that is being used by our youth, especially students, and it's creating a whole lot of problems. Comes to a halt.
Tramadol is a painkiller, but why is the FDA worried about its usage?
The one that you find on the market currently is around 200 milligram upwards, which has not been approved by the FDA. Secondly, it's been established that it is something that is being abused, and we want to discourage that. That's one of the reasons why this particular swoop was organized, to make sure that we deal with the dealers of these products.
So what next after this exercise?
What we want to do is that, yes, we will continue to embark on such exercise to make sure that we make this business uncomfortable, things that people don't easily go into it. That's what we want to do. But aside that, we want to major on education for the general public to understand and appreciate the reason why they don't have to patronize products from such places.
16 people were rounded up Thursday night, 14 of them foreigners and 2 Ghanaians. All 16 have been handed over to the police for further investigations.
Right, and that's it for News at 10, which came to you from the News Hub at Addis Ababa. The weekend begins tonight. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I'm Stephen Enti. On behalf of the crew here, good night.